Yo Joes, it's Monster back here again for another impressions video. This time we're going to be taking a look at the G.I. Joe Classified Series Night Force Lieutenant Falcon and Quarrel 2-pack. We got a lot to say about these because it is two figures and we're going to probably be on lasting impressions for a decent little bit of time. So let's not waste any time here. Let's just jump right into it with our first impressions. Alright everybody, we are back once again with more impressions. This time G.I. Joe Classified Series, and I feel like we do a lot of these, but that's probably because I have so many of them. But we're back again to look at some more of them, and this is the G.I. Joe Classified Series Night Force Lieutenant Falcon and Quarrel. Now, as you've seen on some of these G.I. Joe Classifieds before, I try to get the old one and get it up against the new one just for a quick comparison as well to talk about them. But let's stick to just first impressions, and first impressions is I hate these boxes they're in. There's no... The boxes they were doing before had at least artwork, and there was something about them that stood out and made the box just really cool. These are very, very bland. I mean, you've got the window in the front that shows off the figures, whatever these text specs are supposed to be on the side, and the numbering, which isn't terrible. The artwork on the back of the box, which is not artwork, it's just really posing of the figures, is pretty cool that you can see what they can do with them. And there's a few features that stand out that they try to point out, and there's a lot of words and things, but nothing that really just, this is awesome. The artwork on this side of the box actually does stand out. And if this was on more of the box, I'd probably have a more of an intent of enjoyment out of the box, or more purposeful, hey, I like this a lot. But we don't get that. What we get is just the open window. Now, the one thing I will say about these boxes, at least when you get to the single figure releases, these are thinner boxes, like more slender in this sense, so, or you know, the width sense, so that I can put them on more shelves. And that was one of the reasons I was getting rid of my box ones, because there just wasn't enough room to hold them all. Now, going to the figures, I know nothing at all about the Quarrel, who was a character who was added later on. Cool looking figure, looks like it's some reuse from some others, so nothing that really stands out there. But Falcon is one of my favorite characters, and the head sculpt here, this is one of the ones I definitely want to try and do a comparison, because the head sculpt on this one is so flaming much better than the other one. So flipping much. I mean, the other one was just, I don't know what they went for. It looked like one of the Thunderbirds or Go puppets, but this one, it looks fantastic. I might actually even swap the head out between the two. I'm not sure yet. And I do like the padding. I do like the Night Force colors and the armor and the padding they added to it. Other than that, it's the exact same figure, some of the same weapons, but excited to get this one open. So let's get to that point so we can get back to lasting impressions. Alright Joes, typically we go straight into lasting impressions from first impressions in these videos. If you've been here before, you've seen that. If you're new to the channel, might be news to you. We usually don't do the little interjections here in between the two. However, I felt the need today to do a special interjection in this one, because as I open the figures, and this is going on before we get to lasting impressions and it's sitting on the shelf, but as I was opening them, getting them out and posing them, you're going to see something that I think is going to help inform the final thoughts here. So I wanted to take a minute to add that little extra piece in. It's very short, but it's something that I wanted to point out so that it can help inform you and helps inform our own final thoughts as well. Alright everybody, so typically we don't share this, because when we're doing impressions, we're talking about how we felt about the figure when we first opened it, how we felt after we put it onto a shelf and it sat there for a while. But I'm going to include this for this figure because it will lead into some of my thoughts, final thoughts, and on maybe even my lasting impression, because I'm going to know what's there. And if I don't show it to you now, you're not going to get to see it, because you're not going to be able to see it on my shelf. But I want you to look. Took this figure out the box, Quarrel from the Night Force Lieutenant Falcon and Quarrel 2-pack, and as I'm just breaking the joints loose trying to get them to move, stress mark immediately as soon as the knee moves one time, and I wasn't even applying that much force to it. This was the upper part of the knee was the joint that moved first, and it still created this stress mark. Kind of disappointing. You can tell that this was a reuse from an earlier mold from the Joes because of stuff like that, and honestly I think a lot of it's from the first release of Scarlet maybe. But man, when I did that, I'm just like, seriously guys, come on, we can do better than this. Everything else we've had is so much better. So sorry for the quick cutaway and sharing that, but I felt like I needed to include that in part of this, because it is going to lead into part of my final thoughts, and I just wanted you to be able to see it. Alright guys, we're here for lasting impressions on Night Force Falcon and Quarrel from the 2-pack. I mentioned this earlier. If you watched my previous video, the one for Starduster, I'm shooting this around the same time. I just had the opportunity to open these figures around the same time, put them on shelves. This is the Night Force shelf. As I mentioned, I like to do sub-teams, but this is also another shelf that is unfinished because as I've been rearranging and setting up new things, two of my Night Force figures that have already been opened, and I'm not doing an impressions video, but they'll be joining here from the Dragonfly set, the Crazy Legs and Ripcord, but haven't had a chance to set them in here yet, so that's why you see some empty space back there by Tunnel Rat. And behind Quarrel, we've got to fit those figures and some more stands in here for them. But while we're here, let's focus on the ones we're here for, right? So let's get into these. There's good and bad on these figures. Okay, so let's start with Falcon. Going to Falcon, this is the one I mainly wanted to set for. This is a character that I really enjoyed as a kid. I will say this is a much better head sculpt. I said it when we looked at the in-box version of the figure for first impressions. Out of box, even better. I will say that this grenade launcher they gave him, this is pretty cool. This is the first time I think I've seen this weapon in the line, unless I'm mistaken. I think even Gung Ho, yeah, looking up at him, he just had the single launcher. So it's really cool to see this one. This was a cool weapon. Typically, I'd load Falcon out with a shotgun because that's what I remember him with. But hey, this was such a cool weapon, and everybody else is kind of already loaded out. Even though there's some who I think could use it, I'm just going to give it to Falcon and let him run with it. And yes, I do have to fix the cord on Wolf Rat back there. His repelling cord has come loose from his hand. Don't judge me. I will fix it eventually. I'm not fighting that battle today, though. Or at least not right this minute. Maybe after we record, we'll fix that. Anyway, this Falcon, great figure. I love the fact that while he's still Falcon, and you recognizably know he's Falcon right away, and yes, the head sculpt is better. Yes, I contemplated swapping it out on the other Falcon for this one, just to make that one more my quintessential Falcon, because that was a bad print on that face sculpt. Where he's at in the shelf, I really don't want to go try and move him because I'm scared I'm going to knock over like 15 people trying to get him out of there, and I just don't want to do that. So he's going to stay right here. Plus, he's more front and center, whereas in my other shelf, while he's a major character I love, he's in the back of that shelf because of that face sculpt, and I don't want to redo anything in there, and I don't want to go change that, knock other people over, like I said, and I'm just not going to do it. Plus, right here, he's front center. As you look at the whole shelf, he's kind of my centerpiece. He and Stalker are my leader for these. Yes, I know Beachhead is not Night Force. Yes, I know the Stalker is not Night Force, but let's be honest. Undeniably, if you're going to have a Beachhead that fits in with this versus regular costume Beachhead, which the retro fills perfectly, this one fits in great with Night Force, even though he's got some green on him. And this Stalker, as I mentioned when I did my Stalker video several weeks ago, this one just looks like he's part of Night Force. I mean, they took all of his same outfit and they tempoed it to darker tones, and man, does he ever fit in well here. He looks like he is part of this. Now, he's a little more gray than having black on his costume, but then again, we've got Quarrel over here who's got dark green and not really much gray or black to her costume other than just a little bit in the chest piece, gloves, and boots. So, hey, he fits in. At the end of the day, the Falcon one, fantastic figure. I do love the fact that he's recognizably Falcon, but he's in a different costume. It is not his normal costume, or uniform, I should say. They're not really costumes, they're uniforms. But it's not him in his normal one just repainted. This is actually a whole different uniform for him, and it makes it stand out because it makes him Falcon, but it makes him different from the other one. Whereas a lot of times, like, let's just use Outback, for instance. You've got regular Outback, and then you've got Tiger Force, which is just an absolute repaint. This is a completely different outfit altogether, and it works. Now, I'm going to bring up something in a minute after we look at Quarrel about the overlays on them, but we'll talk that as we talk both figures. So, Quarrel. Okay. Here's my problem with this. I love getting another female for the shelf because let's be honest, there's a lack of female characters in the G.I. Joe outfit, and we're kind of missing some of that. Now, this line has skewed towards the 1980s Real American Hero. It started out as an updated version of that. Lately, it has skewed more towards getting closer to that with the different sub-teams and then the retro card and putting them back in their original uniforms versus the updated modernized take. So adding another woman to the team, I'm great with, because we had a lack of characters. Let's be honest, we only focused on like 3 to 5, maybe, female characters in the 1980s cartoon. It was a different time, so that makes sense. Quarrel is really cool, and what I really do like about the character, I love this mic on the earpiece and the mic on the neck, which is a actual thing now for the military that we use in these days to communicate. So I love having that with her. She's loaded out with great weapons. That whole pack was loaded out with really good weapons. So I gave her, some that I liked for her. And the problem with this figure is that it's easily tellable that it's a repaint of Scarlet at certain points. It looks like they took pieces from both the first and second Scarlet, the retro, and the original one, and from this lot, and just cobbled them together to make this character with a new head sculpt, which is kind of crappy because they even gave her the crossbow holder, or the arrow holder, and a crossbow, a quiver, jeez, and the crossbow, and said, hey, we're not even going to change out the weapons, and then we put a few others in the pack. You can pick different stuff. Okay, I get all that. I can live with all that. We can make this work regardless. I like having another female character. The problem with this character is this whole line skews towards the 80s characters, the real American hero. This character wasn't introduced during that time period. This character was introduced much later on, and I really don't even know anything about her, so I hold no... While I like getting another female character, this holds no significant value to me. At least when we got the Dragonfly and they put Glenda in there, there's some intrinsic nostalgia value to that because there was a Glenda character made back in the days for, I want to say for Brazil release. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it was somewhere else, but my mind says Brazil, so we're going to go with that. And it was exclusive to there that came with some other stuff, and it was just a repaint of Scarlet, but hey, it at least existed. This character didn't exist then, so there's no intrinsic value to hold for this character, so it's kind of like, I like having it. I like the character. It's loaded. It's a G.I. Joe Classified. There's not much to dislike about it. It's loaded out pretty well. I like the head sculpt. I like the new necklace and the mic necklace and earpiece for her. But it's still somebody that I don't know and don't really have any, care about, for lack of a better term, way to say it. All in all, though, let's take a step back and look at both of these. They both work well on the shelf. They fit into the shelf well. Not complaining about either figure in that manner. What I am going to say about these figures is one of the things that they try to do to make them different from regular release, like Falcon's in a whole different uniform, but they also gave him all these shoulder pads. You could have kept him in the same uniform and gave him these shoulder pads, this chest overlay, all this hardcore loadout for like a SWAT intervention type thing, right? And Quarrel has these things as well. It's a Scarlet body, but you've got some overlays with shoulder pads, chest padding, all these things. They look cool. They add to the fact that it's maybe a same character or even a reuse of a character, but they're different, so it gives you that factor. However, those pieces don't stay on very well. Which is cool that you could take them off if you want to have them off and have the character without them. That's really great. However, I wanted to keep them because it makes the character seem different. It makes them seem like they're part of a subset team, like a SWAT team or something, basically. They don't stay on the characters very well. They tend to want to slide off every time you move the character. This piece on Quarrel's leg tends to slide off a lot. The holster stays on okay. For Falcon, it's the shoulder pads and the chest piece along with the backpack. It looks like Flint's chest piece, honestly, that they gave. Yeah, I think it is actually the same chest piece they gave Flint, but it doesn't correlate very well with the hole in the back, the peg in the back for the backpack, so that kind of gets in the way a little bit. And they tend to also, besides slide off, they hinder the articulation a good bit. Not enough to make me hate the figure or say that I can't get the figure posed, because I've got both of them posed pretty well. Balance on the Quarrel was a little harder. Falcon was pretty easy to pose actually, but I got them both posed. They were both set up, and the overlays didn't get in the way too bad. But there's some work that can be done there because there's a little bit of lacking in that aspect. We'll talk about that some more. So let's get out of here and come back with some final thoughts on these. Oh, and I should also mention that as I said when we did Starduster, he'd been there for about a week. These have been here for about a week and a day at this point. So this is where they're staying in the shelf, even though I've got more to add to it. But they fit in well, as I said, and they work. It's just there's some things that could be worked on, such as the overlays. So with that, let's jump over to final thoughts. Here we are back here with final thoughts to put you in the know about the 9th G.I. Joe Classified Series Night Force Lieutenant Falcon and Quarrel 2-pack. And yes, I was getting tongue-tied because that is a little bit of a mouthful. Let's see here. Yeah, you see me with a little bit of frustration. So this 2-pack. Let's start off. Before I give final thoughts on whether it's recommended or not, let's just go straight into some of the stuff we need to talk about. This is a mixed bag. It really is. I love the fact that we got another. I mentioned this in the video, in the lasting impression. I love the fact that we got another female GI Joe character because we didn't have that many. If you're a fan of the 1980s GI Joe, a Real American Hero cartoon, you had three basically major ones: Cover Girl, Scarlet, Lady J. Maybe a few pop in here and there. Not really anything that I can recall that was on screen for a very long time. Jinx, I guess, maybe as you go into the Deke animation. But your options were very limited if you wanted an empowering female character figure in there. The ones that were there were great. We just didn't get that many of them. And to be honest, it was a different time period, right? When you went to the toy shelves as a young child in that period, it was boys buy boy toys, girls buy girl toys. There wasn't as much mix and match, and you didn't have that many strong women, female characters for the girls to attest to because we just didn't do that back then, unfortunately. Not saying it's right by any means. It's kind of how it was. So now we're doing that differently. We're adding more characters in. So I bring that up to get to the point of, hey, we got a brand new female character. I like the female character on the shelf. I like having another one to add to the shelf. The problem is this entire line is based around the 1980s G.I. Joe, Real American Hero cartoon. People can say it's not, that it's just G.I. Joe, but let's be honest. When this line started, they were trying to modernize that and get new people into it. As this line has progressed, they have found that the fans wanted it, but they wanted it to be like what they remember it from for 40 years ago. So that's what it has started morphing into. Whether you start with Barbecue's figure, who's kind of the first one that kind of goes that fully retro look with just a little bit of updating, and then you get into the retro Carter figures where it looks exactly like the old one, just modern and upscaled. That's what the fans are going for. That's what's being clamored for. That's what people are spending their money on. That is what is driving the collector market on this, at least as far as I can see. Now, I'm not knocking having new characters by any means. You got to introduce new characters, new lifeblood to keep this going, but the fans are buying the characters that they grew up with. If you put a character out there that they didn't grow up with, we even talked about Starduster. He was an exclusive. Not everybody had him, so he doesn't hold nostalgia value. If you're not giving us those characters, there's no nostalgia value. When you're giving us brand new characters, there's no nostalgia to them. So the average collector, are they going to buy into it? Maybe, maybe not. The hardcore collectors, probably not. And the people who are just getting into the line, yeah, you might have an option there with them. Now, I say all that to say, I that's because we've got a character who came out much later than that cartoon series in this 2-pack. That character holds no intrinsic value for most of the people buying these. Now, I enjoyed it because I liked it. I picked it up. I bought it mostly for the Night Force Lieutenant Falcon because that was the Lieutenant Falcon I had as a kid, was the Night Force one, which, let's be honest, back then it was just a repaint of the regular one. And I'm glad that they gave us something different in this one that wasn't just a repaint. It was Falcon. It was noticeably Falcon, but he had a different uniform. And he had these cool overlays. Now, the overlays, let me stick to one subject first, I guess. The female character in this, I enjoyed her. I liked the way they gave her the mic, the headpiece, all that. But they reused Scarlet's body. And not all just from the retro Scarlet. They went back to the first one as well for some of the leg stuff. It got a stress mark as soon as I opened it, which helps really inform my decision. Is this a recommend or not? Because if you're giving me a figure that's breaking the first time I move it, I'm not happy about it. And I don't think anybody would be. And there's no intrinsic value to the character. So did I buy it because she's in it? No. Now, did I buy some other ones? Because if you saw on that Night Force shelf, there's Jody Shooter Craig, who was added in much later, was not part of a Real American Hero, but that figure was really cool, and I liked it, and I got into it. And it's another female G.I. Joe from my shelf, so I was happy about that. And it was done much better and put out in a much better way. I think the reason they did Quarrel in this way is because maybe that one didn't sell because it didn't have that nostalgia value, and the idea was, how do we sell this figure? Put it with somebody that people will probably buy, which is a Lieutenant Falcon Night Force figure. Makes sense. I get why they did it. I'm just saying that kind of leads into what I'm going to say as far as recommend or not. But now let me take a step back because I almost got off beat here, and I didn't want to lose the point I was trying to make. But the overlays that they gave Falcon, they gave him a new uniform altogether. It looks like he's maybe using the Buck body from Outback at that point because he's got the short sleeve shirt. You see the hair on the arm. Maybe that's what it is. I'm not 100% certain. But I will say that figure is really good. You know it's Falcon. You've got a new uniform for him, and you've got these cool little armor pieces of overlay, which I said in the first impressions I thought was going to be one of the things that really stood out to me, or that I really liked about it. And this is a case of when I got it out of the box, it did not get better. We talked about this before when we did the Angel video. Sometimes you take things out of the box and it gets so much better because there's so much more play value and things to it than what you realized in the box. In this case, that wasn't the case, because while these look cool, they don't stay in place very well. You have to, every time you try to go to move them to pose them, they fall all off and want to come completely off, which is cool that they can come off. I will say that. But if I want it on there, I want it to stay in position. I don't want it falling all over the figure and being just loose and hanging there. And that happened a lot. Now, when I finally got it into position and got it where I wanted it, cool, it stays there. I'm cool with it. The other problem with those overlays is they hindered our articulation. Like, I had a hard time moving Falcon's shoulders as well as his elbows, just because that overlay kept getting in the way. And then again, he's got the Flint vest on from the first Flint release in G.I. Joe Classified, and that gets in the way because now I can't engage the ab crunch or the even sometimes the twist waist, the twist waist, the waist that twists around. Yes, forgive me, people. I don't speak very good English. I speak Southern. Sometimes it comes out. But that kind of hinders some of his movement because it would get stuck in place and just be there. And even just trying to ab crunch forward is almost impossible with the overlay because it's just there and in the way. Again, you can remove them, but I'm stating all this to give you insight into what my final thoughts were on the figure. Now, that's a perfect lead in to say, what do we say? I'm going to have to say that this set is, as much as I hate to do this, I'm going to say that this set is I'm not going to say it's a full failure. It is a half recommend, half fail. What do I mean by that? Let's try to explain it. Half recommend is, hey, actually, let's do the failure first. Let's leave on a good note. The failure, what's the failure here? The failure is that you gave me a character that I have no intrinsic value with in this 2-pack. Okay, I get it. You couldn't sell it probably otherwise, so you threw it in here so that I could say, oh, that might encourage me to buy it. And I'm going to be honest, it did help encourage me to buy that figure, just because that figure by itself, I don't know if I would have bought it. I probably would have because I'm a completionist, but I don't know if I would recommend anybody else have done it because it had problems with the figure. It's trying to break immediately. It's just a repaint. It's not a very well-known character. I don't know if I'd have told anybody as a single pack to recommend that. Now, as a 2-pack, and I'm going to get Falcon out of it, there's some reason for me to recommend there, but still, having that in there kind of makes it a failure. It kind of makes it a failure because as good as that Falcon Hellscope is, I really just want to take that off, pop it on the other one, put that one on this one, and I don't really care about this one anymore, because as much as I like this figure and I like to give him a new uniform, the uniform somewhat hinders his movement because he's got all the padding and it gets in the way. And I'm like, well, because he's front and center on my Night Force shelf, great. If I was just buying him by himself, I might have swapped that head, and I don't know, I might have hit him in the back of my Night Force shelf and just done something with the other one. I'm saying all that to say that's the failure portion of this. Now, at full price, it's not worth it. Unless you're just a completionist or you need all the Night Force characters or you just really want Falcon that bad, this is not worth buying for most hardcore G.I. Joe Classified collectors or G.I. Joe collectors in general, just because you didn't give us a whole lot new other than the grenade launcher and the padding armor, which most of that padded armor is on the Steel Corps Brigade. It belongs on them. It's cool on Falcon because it gave him a different look. That's the failure. The recommend for this is, I'm recording this well after Christmas. We're into late January, getting into early February. If you bought this at Christmas time, and even possibly now, I haven't looked lately, but at Christmas time, this 2-pack dropped all the way down to $28, $29. If you're not wanting to put your full amount on this, but you kind of want Falcon, even if it's just for the head, at $29, $30 for 2 figures, even though you don't care about one of them because there's no intrinsic nostalgia value to it, and even though one is just okay but not super great, it would be a recommend at that point because, hey, you're getting a deal. But at full price, no, I would not have. So at the end of the day, this is a half failure, half recommend. I I don't know which one to tell you to really do. Normally I would say it's one or the other, but in this case, because of price points on it right now, and the fact that it is, they're G.I. Joe classified. They're not bad figures, so don't take it as I'm saying they're bad. They are great figures. It's just you don't really need it for your set unless you're trying to complete Night Force or trying to have every figure that they make. So in that regards, it's a little bit of both. It's a mixed bag, as I said. And that's where you saw a little bit of frustration on my face because I wasn't sure what to tell you guys. But I want to be upfront and honest with you. And even I will even bring Hassel into this, my co-host from the Nerdy Man Room show. When Big Rob sent out, hey, these figures are on sale for this, and he was like, well, I don't really want the female figure because I have no connection with her. I was like, dude, at that price, it's probably worth buying just so you get both. And, that was still based on first impression because I hadn't opened it yet. And even today, I would still tell him the same thing. Buy it for the two of them if it's at that price. If it's a full price and you pass it by, even if you miss out on the better Falcon head, you're not going to miss it. You're not going to care at the end of the day. So that's our final thoughts on it. We'd love to hear yours in the comment section, so please feel free to share that. And thanks for watching this video. And if you were debating on getting this figure, we hope this helps you figure out what your decision will be on that. Now, if you enjoyed this or any of our other content on the Stay Word Network, please like and subscribe below. And if you want to check out any of us on any of our other channels, please go check out Big Rob's House of Entertainment and No Chinese Food, where you can find Big Rob. Go to Fueled by Weird Podcast, wherever you find your podcast, in order to find our other co-host, Mr. Chris Daly. And then if you go to the Nerdy Man Room Show channel, you can find myself and Hassel on the Nerdy Man Room Show and Hassel on Hassel's Reviews. Until then, thanks for watching. Join us here next time for our next impressions.